Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. The market's reaction to a tariff truce.
We achieved a total reset with China.
What the agreement could mean for the world's financial future.
I think he's going to focus and concentrate aggressively his agenda.
The makeup of Mark Carney's new cabinet. CTV News learns it will be leaner and contain many new faces.
I think everyone's just ready to get this started.
Plus, accusations of brutal abuse and scandal. The trial of Sean Diddy Combs is underway.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
I'm Heather Butts in for Sandy tonight. Markets surged today on news of a de-escalation of U.S. trade tensions with China over the weekend. The two countries confirmed a major reduction of tariffs, both agreeing to slash them by 115%. U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports fell from 145% to 30%, and Chinese tariffs down from 125% to 10% on most U.S. imports. CTV's Joy Malbon is following the latest for us from Washington. Joy, a sign of relief on the stock market, but it's just another 90-day pause. So how is the president reacting to this announcement?
Oh, Heather, this is good economic news, and the president is framing it as a win. After this bitter tit-for-tat trade war, the two biggest economies in the world agreed to cool things down. Now, the U.S. is rolling back those eye-popping taxes on Chinese goods, and Beijing, in return, lowering its levies on U.S. imports. But yes, it is just a pause. The White House was looking for an off-ramp after being warned of empty shelves by major U.S. companies and fears of a recession. The president calling it a reset in relations. Take a listen.
We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week.
So, Joy, I want to ask about another story making headlines. Donald Trump accepting an extravagant gift from the ruler of Qatar today. What more can you tell us about that?
Heather, the plane. The president in his first term wanted a new ride. Air Force One is 40 years old, and the royal family in Qatar has offered Trump a Boeing 747 known as the Flying Palace. Now, he toured this $400 million luxury jet back in February, but here's the rub. The Constitution prohibits anyone holding federal office from accepting personal gifts. Critics like Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer blasted the plan, saying, quote, "It's not just bribery, it's premium foreign influence with extra legroom." Here's the president again.
I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft.
Trump will visit Qatar during his Middle East trip this week, including Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, looking for investments in his first major foreign trip as president. Heather?
And we know you'll be following it closely. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon. Thank you, Joy. For more on the market reaction, let's bring in CTV's chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang, as we take a closer look at the U.S.-China tariffs announcement. Amanda, this is by no means a formal trade deal. It's just a 90-day pause, as we heard. So how optimistic is this news long-term?
I think, Heather, there's a lot of grounds for optimism, although, as you say, there's a way to go before it's a formal deal. One of the most optimistic things is that 10% number, because that, of course, is a number that they have also settled with the UK. The US-UK deal announced last week has 10% as kind of a new baseline tariff. It also happens to be a number that the folks behind Project 2025 and some of the big thinkers around trade have suggested is the right number. It says maybe the wild erraticism is over and we're actually getting down to deals, and 10% is where we're going to land. It actually gives companies something to hang their hat on, and it gives Canada maybe an indication of where we might land too.
CTV's chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. The Liberals inched another seat closer to a majority government this weekend. A judicial recount saw them claim the Quebec riding of Terrebonne by a margin of just one vote. Now, with 170 seats, too shy of a majority, Mark Carney is just hours away from announcing his new cabinet. CTV's Rachel Ayala was following the story from Ottawa. Rachel, how is this expected to take shape?
Heather, Mark Carney is putting the finishing touches on his new front bench, ahead of revealing tomorrow who he thinks can deliver, and deliver fast on his promise to set Canada on a new path. Behind closed doors, Mark Carney and his transition team have been preparing to present who will take the lead on making the Liberals' campaign commitments come to life.
Taking these decisions around who is going to be in the ministry sets the tone for the entirety of the mandate.
Focus cabinet.
After appointing a slimmed-down ministry just before the election, CTV News has confirmed that Carney's cabinet roster is expected to stay under 30 people, but the Prime Minister's office says Carney will be installing essentially a two-tiered team. There will be a core group of cabinet ministers that will lead on the big files such as trade and Trump, and then there will be up to 10 secretaries of state, who in addition could be picking up less pressing portfolios or assist main ministers on specific files. This ministry, as it'll be called, isn't likely to be involved in all cabinet work, according to the PMO. CTV News has also confirmed that more than half of the MPs walking up to Rideau Hall tomorrow will be new faces. Someone who was in the room when the last Prime Minister was making these decisions said to expect Carney to leverage having a more regionally diverse roster and recruits with big resumes.
The prime consideration for Mr. Carney is going to be who has the skills to take the decisions and to lead at this critical moment for our country. Period. End of sentence.
As for what Canadians want to see this government focus on, Canada-US relations tops the list, according to Nanos research, followed by affordability, healthcare, housing, and tax cuts. Heather?
All right, Rachel, thank you. A push for unionization is brewing at Starbucks, where 5 Ontario locations have ratified their first collective agreements. The Starbucks workers have joined the United Steelworkers Union. A previous attempt to unionize in Canada failed in 2023 when the coffee giant closed the country's only unionized location in Vancouver. In the U.S., the union movement started with 1 store in 2021. Now, Starbucks Workers United represents about 570 stores and 11,000 workers. The rallying cry of elbows up appears to be having a major impact on travel to the United States. New figures from April show return trips by land and air have declined for a 4th consecutive month. Our Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Bushman is tracking the numbers for us. Geneviève, what are we seeing so far?
Yeah, Heather, turbulence in the relationship between Canada and the U.S. continues to drive down travel to the U.S. For the 4th month in a row, Canadians scratched the U.S. off their travel list when they could.
When it comes for vacation, I think there's other places I would rather go.
Both air and ground traffic slowed. In April, Canadian resident return trips by air fell 19.9% compared to the same month in 2024. For road trips, the decline was steep, a 35.2% drop. What was a notion months ago of buying Canadian even in travel is now a trend that's holding. The low loonie compared to the U.S. dollar is a factor, but most blame the trade war and President Donald Trump's annexation threats.
I think it reflects authentic feelings of patriotism among Canadians. It's very difficult to affect the world as an individual, but on this one thing, you can actually do something.
Some fear their phones being searched by border guards or even detention. For Lisa King and Fred Sakeley from Ottawa, the issue of travel south is a bit of a touchy issue.
I'm not traveling to the U.S. He's more open to traveling to the U.S.
Oh, and you're a couple?
We are.
Yep, we're married.
Causing a little bit of...
This is a conversation we don't discuss at home anymore.
I want to go where I want to go, and if it's Florida or Boston, we have friends in New York, I'd go visit them in a heartbeat.
The statistics also include a bit of a warning sign. Americans are slowing travel to Canada too. Air arrivals are down 5.5%, automobile trips down 10.7% from the same month in 2024. But the question now is whether this shift in the cross-border lifestyle Canadians have embraced for generations will drive the U.S. to reconsider its policies. It's not clear yet exactly what the impact will be during the busy summer travel season, but many say they've written the U.S. off their list. Heather.
Geneviève Bushman for us in Montreal. Crews battling forest fires in Saskatchewan are getting some help from Quebec. The province sending aircraft and crews, all needed to help fight several forest fires. CTV's Alison Bamford spoke with one evacuee. And Alison, these are terrifying accounts.
Well, Heather, it was a case of grab and go for the evacuees I spoke with. The woman and her granddaughter fled with just the clothes on their backs, while her husband managed to pack up a few things in a couple of garbage bags. They left the rest behind here at their home at Rainbow Lodge, which is also their livelihood, a beloved attraction for locals and tourists in the northern boreal forest, right now threatened by 2 wildfires in the area. Shelley Lawrence and her family fled Thursday. They don't know when they can return or what they'll come back to.
I'm fearing that maybe I'll see my place burned to the ground before I know my place burned to the ground on Facebook.
There are 16 active wildfires burning in Saskatchewan today, the province seeing 146 total wildfires this year, more than double the 5-year average for this time in the season. Government officials said Friday that all of those fires had been human-caused, with dry conditions a contributing factor.
We need some spring rains to help with green up and to get some of that moisture back.
Lawrence says she's watching the forecast and Facebook closely for any updates while she stays at her son's house about an hour south of the fires. The short-range forecast shows the potential for rain, but right now only a few millimeters. Heather.
Alison Bamford in Saskatoon. Fire crews in northern Manitoba are also battling a wildfire, while in the southern part of the province, Environment Canada issued heat warnings with temperatures soaring above 30 degrees. CTV's Alex Carpa is at the heart of the heat wave in Winnipeg. Alex, what is it like out there?
Well, Heather, the sun is out. There is a little bit of a breeze, but you can really feel that heat just standing here. Temperatures in Winnipeg and parts of southern Manitoba hitting well into the mid-30s. Environment and Climate Change Canada says many rural communities across the province even hit heat records over the weekend. Even though this heat wave is coming a little earlier this year, Environment Canada notes this is not unheard of, as there have been similar temperatures like this in recent years. We actually spoke to a few folks around here at the Forks who are embracing the heat.
It's amazing, gorgeous. I've been back here for 2 winters and I'm amazed by how fast spring has sprung. And it's beautiful for everyone to enjoy.
It's very surprising for this time of year, but I like this kind of weather, so I'm pretty happy. It's nice to bike to and from work.
Heat warnings are still in effect in southern and central Manitoba, and that will occur and stay for the next couple of days. However, there is some cooler weather coming at the end of the week, which will bring forth much needed rain as much of the province continues to deal with wildfires. Heather?
Alex Carpa in Winnipeg. Coming up, celebrations and relief in Israel. What we know about the hostage released by Hamas. Plus, the high-profile trial of a hip-hop mogul begins. The high-profile sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs is underway in New York City as opening statements were made.
He's engaged, he's ready to go, he's ready to put on his defense.
Combs has pleaded not guilty to all 5 counts against him, including racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. In the courtroom today, the prosecution focused on Combs' alleged brutal abuse of Cassandra Cassie Ventura and another former girlfriend, while the defense argued these were voluntary relationships with capable, strong adult women. Elation in Israel today with the release of a hostage held captive by Hamas in Gaza since the October 7th attacks in 2023. American-Israeli Adan Alexander was transferred to Israeli authorities, ending a nearly 20-month ordeal. CTV's Heather Wright now on the 21-year-old's release and emotional homecoming in Israel. Heather.
Hamas says they released Adan Alexander as a goodwill gesture, with the U.S. president calling this the first of the final steps needed to end this conflict.
People cheer as the convoy carrying Israeli-American hostage Idan Alexander arrives in Israel. His release brokered by the United States and Hamas in a deal that largely circumvented the Israeli government, as efforts to secure a broader truce in Gaza continue to stall. His family clapped as they watched the 21-year-old being released after 578 days in captivity.
This is a new day. This is a new day. Idan will come back and our family.
Today, Israel's Prime Minister said Alexander's release was due to the military pressure Israel has stepped up on Hamas in Gaza, along with diplomatic pressure from the United States. But critics of Benjamin Netanyahu's government say the soldier was released only because of American involvement and are calling on U.S. President Donald Trump to continue to exert pressure on Israel.
This time, President Trump will force Netanyahu to stop the war and go to a hostage deal, releasing all the hostages.
Yehuda Cohen's son Nimrod was taken from the same military base as Idan Alexander on October 7th and is still being held in Gaza.
We know Nimrod is still alive. We know that he's surviving, and we're fighting for his release.
This morning, the U.S. president said work continues on freeing more hostages before he departed for a trip to the Middle East.
We hope that we're going to have other hostages released too, as you know.
Trump will visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates on this trip, where the war in Gaza will be among the topics discussed. Humanitarian groups say the entire enclave is at risk of famine due to 19 months of war and a blockade of aid that has been in place since March. Heather.
CTV's Heather Wright in Toronto. A group of 49 white South Africans have left their homeland for America after being offered refugee status by the Trump administration.
White farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
The South African government says claims of Afrikaners being prosecuted are completely false. One of Trump's closest advisors, Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa, has previously said there was a genocide of white people in the country, but that has been widely discredited. Still ahead, the toll of high tuition. The 15-year-old student prodigy who could be forced to leave the country. She is a teenage genius enrolled at Concordia University's biochemistry program at the ripe old age of 15. But high tuition fees for international students might force her to drop her studies and return to Iran. And as CTV's Kelly Gregg tells us, that could also put her in danger.
While most students here are in their 20s, Sarah Saidi is just 15.
I finished the entire elementary school material when I was 6.
Her parents discovered her talents as a baby. She started talking around 1 year old and graduated high school at 13 just 2 years ago.
I didn't tell anyone about my age because I didn't want them to treat me differently.
Saidi was initially accepted to Concordia University at 13 years old. But because her study documents took so long to come in, she only started last fall, right at the same time as the provincial government raised tuition for international students to over $20,000.
The value of the Iranian currency is just dropping so rapidly, it is crazy. So if we were counting on getting money from Iran, from my father who lives there, it just doesn't work anymore.
Now, despite having a 4.0 GPA in biochemistry, straight A's, and a letter from a professor saying Sarah Saidi is a truly gifted young student, and I had no idea she was years younger than my typical students, she might not be able to continue, and that would force her to go back to Iran.
It's heavy, it's huge, and things are not good there for a woman, for a young woman specifically.
Over the past few years, Iran has cracked down on university students in the face of protests over the death of a 22-year-old woman in police custody. Her legal guardian in Canada says it's not safe.
For her to go back, it's very dangerous, and I don't want her to to have any fear.
The university says to get a study permit from Quebec and Canada, international students must show to both governments that they have sufficient funds to study here. Saidi now has just weeks to get the money together while keeping up her studies.
Knowing that every single grade that I earn is going to determine my entire future and like my entire status to even stay in this country.
At just 15 years old, she's trying to figure out how to keep her academic dreams alive. Kelly Gregg, CTV News, Montreal.
A dramatic fourth overtime winner gave the Montreal Victoire their first ever playoff victory, ending the longest game in PWHL history.
When you add it all up, Dubois scores!
Catherine Dubois was the hero after nearly 7 periods of hockey. The series between Montreal and the Ottawa Charge is now tied at 1 and moves to Canada's capital for Game 3 tomorrow night. After the break, an East Coast tradition is in season. The annual adventure that's ripe for the picking. We leave you tonight with a spring tradition in the Maritimes now in full swing. Foraging for fiddleheads, and it's especially popular in New Brunswick. CTV's Sarah Plowman is here to walk us through this fun and tasty experience. Sarah.
Heather, for so many New Brunswickers, Mother's Day and fiddleheads go hand in hand. Today I went out foraging for fiddleheads with local historian Andrew McLean, who points out that people have a narrow 2-week window when these ferns are ripe. That many people have their go-to spots along the rivers. Some don't always like to share where their locations are. Now, for McLean, like so many, foraging fiddleheads is a family tradition, a hobby he learned from his grandparents in Tide Head, New Brunswick, known as the fiddlehead capital of the world. He showed me how to properly identify the fiddleheads, told me that once they grow too big, they get bitter, and nobody wants that, and gave me a quirky tip for washing them.
So you know, if you're in a bingo hall, they have those rolling circle things that they drill the ball out of. If you put that in shallow water and the fiddleheads inside them and use it to wash them, it's way less of a fuss.
McLean says it seems in other spots like Toronto, fiddleheads seem more like a delicacy. Prices might reflect that, but here there are plenty of them and plenty of roadside stands like this one selling fiddleheads for $5 a pound. And they have been selling fast. I'm told some customers bought the fiddleheads here to ship to family in Saskatoon. Eating and foraging fiddleheads is something people here have always done, an intrinsic part of the culture and tradition. They're also delicious. I'm told to cook them, either saute them, steam them, or boil them, and that they go very well with butter, maybe some lemon, maybe some dill. Heather.
All right, sounds delicious. Sarah, thank you. That is our newscast for this Monday. I hope you can join Omar later tonight. I'm Heather Butts. Your local CTV News starts right now.